Hi, my name is Lani Gil, and I'm one of the orchestra directors at Alamo Heights Junior School in San Antonio, Texas. And I wanted to talk to you about two things I use in my classroom to help my students practice good intonation skills. The first thing I like to use in my classroom is a drone pitch. I like turning on the drone and having my students audiate, sing, and play against it. It helps my students develop a good sense of tonal center. Some things I do with a drone is have my students play scales. For example, if I'm teaching a 1-octave D scale, I'll definitely have my drone on at first and have the students play along with it. Another thing I do that's a little unconventional is I'll have my students also sing with drones. I'll have them sing the scales against the drones as well as practice different things and use audiation as well. If you start your students singing from the very beginning, they won't be so scared to do it, and you'll get really good results from it as well. The next thing I use in my classroom are ringing tones. I believe ringing tones are the key to intonation success for string players. Ringing tones are sympathetic vibrations of the open strings when other pitches are played. The strongest being the ones that correlate to the open strings. So on a violin, for example, anytime you play a G, D, A, or E, you're going to hear the open string vibrate. If the pitch you're playing is perfectly in tune, you're going to get the strongest ringing tone. I like to use ringing tones in my classroom because not only does it provide an aural tool for my students to use, but also it makes intonation visual as well. The first thing I do is either on a cello or a bass, or if I only have a violin, I will show them visually how it looks. So pick the lowest string possible. Here on my violin I have a G, and I'm going to pick the note adjacent 1 octave higher to show them how it looks. In this case, third finger G on the D string. So I'll walk around my classroom and show the student how the G string is vibrating. You can see it moving back and forth. It's a little bit out of tune. It's not going to vibrate as much, and you clearly see a big difference. The next thing I use ringing tones for is to help my students develop really strong pinkies. I have a lot of students have issues playing 4-finger, not only technically, but aurally as well. Often it's flat, and I'm sure you've had the same issue. So what you can do, especially for your violinist, when you're teaching that 4-finger E, you can incorporate ringing tones to it. With the E string, the ringing tone is really bright. Can you hear it after I play? I have my students do the same thing, really heavy bow stroke, and then lift up like a helicopter so that they can hear the E string. They're only going to be able to do it if they have a perfect shaped pinky and they're approaching the string from the top. If they're playing a little bit out of tune, they're not going to get the ringing tone. You don't hear the brightness afterwards. Also, if your student has a straight pinky on their instrument, you're not going to hear the ringing tone because your pinky is hitting the E string, not allowing it to freely vibrate. So I really like using ringing tones in my classroom to help my students develop really good aural and intonation skills. So these are just two things I use in my classroom to help my students develop good intonation skills, both visually and aurally.